Something interesting happens when you hit 60. You start cutting people out of your life, and surprisingly, it feels absolutely wonderful. Not in a bitter or angry way, but in a peaceful, liberating way that's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't experienced it yet. If you're over 60, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're younger, you might think this sounds harsh or negative, but trust me, it's actually one of the healthiest and most empowering things that happens as you get older. Today, I want to talk about this phenomenon that almost everyone experiences after 60, but nobody really talks about openly. Why do we start cutting people off? What changes in us that makes this feel not just okay, but actually good? And why is this completely normal and healthy rather than something to feel guilty about? Whether you're already experiencing this shift or you're wondering what's coming as you approach this age, understanding this change can help you embrace it without guilt and recognize it as a natural part of growing older and wiser. Here's the truth. When you're younger, you tolerate a lot of nonsense from people. You maintain relationships out of obligation, guilt, habit, or because you think you're supposed to. You put up with friends who drain your energy, family members who criticize you constantly, acquaintances who take but never give, and people who just don't add anything positive to your life. You tell yourself that's just what you do. You keep up with people. You stay connected. You don't rock the boat. You be the bigger person. But something shifts around 60. Maybe it's because you've lived long enough to see how precious time really is. Maybe it's because you've finally developed the confidence to put yourself first. Maybe it's because you've simply run out of patience for things that don't matter. Whatever the reason, you start realizing that life is too short to spend time with people who don't lift you up, and you begin the process of quietly cutting people off. Not dramatically, not with big confrontations or announcements, but simply by letting relationships fade, stopping the effort to maintain connections that don't serve you, and choosing to spend your limited time and energy on people and things that actually bring you joy. And here's the surprising part. It feels good, really good, like a weight lifting off your shoulders. Let's explore why this happens and why it's not only normal, but actually healthy. The first reason you start cutting people off after 60 is that you finally understand how limited time really is. When you're 30 or 40, you feel like you have endless time ahead of you. You can afford to waste an afternoon with someone who drains you, maintain friendships that don't really nourish you, or spend time at obligations you don't enjoy because, well, there's always more time. But by 60, you've lived enough life to understand viscerally that time is finite and precious. You start doing the math. If you're 60 and you live to 85, you've got maybe 25 years left, and those years will likely include declining health and energy. That's not that much time. Suddenly, spending 3 hours with someone who makes you feel bad about yourself seems like a terrible waste of precious hours you'll never get back. Every Sunday dinner with relatives who criticize you, every coffee date with a friend who only talks about herself and never asks about you, every obligation that leaves you feeling drained rather than energized, these start feeling intolerable because you realize you're trading irreplaceable time for experiences that make you unhappy. This isn't being selfish, it's being wise. You're making a conscious choice about how to spend the time you have left, and you're choosing to spend it with people who matter, doing things that bring you joy or at least peace. This clarity about time's value makes cutting people off feel not just acceptable, but necessary. You're not being mean, you're being smart about your most valuable resource. The second reason is that you've simply run out of energy for drama and negativity. By the time you hit 60, you've been through enough real problems in life: health scares, loss of loved ones, career challenges, financial worries, family crises. You know what real problems look like, and you've developed a much lower tolerance for manufactured drama, petty conflicts, gossip, complaining, and negativity. Some people seem to thrive on drama. They're always in the middle of some crisis, always complaining about something, always stirring up conflict or negativity. When you're younger, you might get pulled into this, feel obligated to listen and support them, or not realize you have a choice about whether to engage. But by 60, you've learned that some people are energy vampires who will drain you dry if you let them, and you simply don't have the energy or patience for it anymore. You start recognizing the people who bring drama and negativity into your life, and you start distancing yourself from them. You don't have the energy to be someone's therapist when they make the same bad choices repeatedly and just want to complain rather than change. You don't have the patience for people who are always negative, always critical, always finding something to be upset about. You don't have the tolerance for gossip and pettiness that you might have engaged with when you were younger. You want peace, positivity, and genuine connection, and anything less than that just isn't worth your time anymore. Cutting off the drama-filled relationships feels liberating because you're protecting your peace and your limited energy for things that actually matter. The third reason is that you've developed enough self-confidence to stop seeking approval from others. When you're younger, especially in your 20s through 40s, you care a lot about what people think. You maintain relationships partly because you want to be liked. You want to fit in. You don't want to be seen as difficult or unfriendly. You put up with people who don't treat you well because you're still seeking their approval or validation. But something magical happens as you get older. You stop caring so much what other people think. By 60, you've lived long enough to realize that you can't please everyone, that some people won't like you no matter what you do, and that seeking approval from others is exhausting and ultimately pointless. You start caring less about being liked by everyone and more about being true to yourself and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely appreciate you as you are. This shift in perspective makes cutting people off much easier. You're not worried about what they'll think or say about you. You're not concerned about your reputation or whether they'll badmouth you to others. You're not seeking their approval anymore. So losing their presence in your life doesn't feel like a loss, it feels like freedom. You realize that you'd rather be alone or have a small circle of genuine friends than maintain a large network of shallow or toxic relationships just to be seen as friendly or popular. This self-confidence and self-assurance that comes with age makes cutting people off feel empowering rather than scary. You're finally putting yourself first, and it feels wonderful. The fourth reason is that you've learned to recognize who your real friends are versus who's just along for the ride. By 60, you've been through enough life experiences, good times and hard times, to know who shows up for you and who doesn't. You know who was there when you needed them and who disappeared during your tough times. You know who celebrates your successes genuinely and who seems quietly resentful. You know who makes effort to maintain the friendship and who only calls when they need something. You've learned the difference between fair-weather friends who are around when things are easy and good versus true friends who stick with you through thick and thin. You've also learned that friendship should be mutual. Both people should be giving, listening, supporting, making an effort. Relationships where it's always one-sided, where you're always the one reaching out, always the one listening, always the one giving, while the other person just takes, those become very obvious by 60, and you lose patience with them. You start focusing your energy on the relationships that are mutual, genuine, and enriching, and you let the one-sided or superficial relationships fall away. This feels good because you're finally honoring your own worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve in your relationships. You're not bitter about the people who weren't really friends. You're just done wasting time on them. You're redirecting your energy toward the people who've proven they're worth it, and there's something deeply satisfying about that clarity. The fifth reason is that you've realized you have permission to set boundaries and prioritize yourself. Many of us, especially women, but men too, were raised to be accommodating, to put others first, to avoid conflict, to be the peacemaker, to maintain relationships at all costs. We were taught that setting boundaries was selfish, that cutting people off was mean, that we should always give people another chance, that family is family no matter what. But by 60, you've learned through hard experience that constantly putting everyone else first leaves you depleted, resentful, and unhappy. You've learned that some people will take and never give back, and that you have every right to protect yourself from that. You've learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. You've learned that not all relationships are worth maintaining just because they've existed for a long time, or because of shared history or family connection. You give yourself permission to prioritize your own well-being, your own peace, your own happiness. If someone consistently makes you feel bad, you have permission to limit contact or cut them completely off. If a relationship